The economic survey is out. It might paint a positive picture, but what does it really mean for the common man? To discuss that, I have my editor-in-chief, Mr. Srinivasan S. with me. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Yeah, hi.
So my first question to you is, AI is coming for your job. So that's what many people fear about. And the economic survey says that AI will augment jobs, but not replace them. But let's be real. What kind of jobs are actually safe and who needs to be worried?
Yeah, in the last chapter of economic survey, they have discussed this issue in detail. And actually, it's a new addition to the way the surveys are done. And, within 6 months, there's a second survey in which prominently artificial intelligence is figured. What it means is one need not fear about losing jobs just because AI has come. Yeah, some kinds of jobs will certainly go, but any new technology comes, it will also lead to increasing efficiency, productivity. Also, it will speed up things rather than worrying about these issues. But certainly, there is certain reskilling which would be required. But in some other chapter referring to AI, the survey does say that for this, we need lots of people who are ready to, face the AI challenge. So it's basically the education, the engineers and others who have to come up. And that's where the emphasis is, that we need to lay a lot of emphasis on reskilling and a proper education so that we are able to meet this new emerging technology head on.
Okay. The government says the inflation is under control, but the price of tomatoes still, skyrockets every few months. We see that in headlines. So the survey talks about global factors and supply chain disruptions. But so when will the common man feel relief in his monthly grocery bills?
See, there are two ways in which inflation is measured. One is WPI and the other is CPI, a wholesale price index and consumer price index. And the weightage in the consumer price index is quite a lot for, green vegetables, fruits, milk, pulses, the other thing which we consume on a day-to-day basis. It's true that these prices are really up, and these are largely because of seasonal factors, because green vegetables and others are all because of seasonal factors. And therefore, it is referring to that there have been either intense heat or heavy rains, which has disrupted the supply. And then in the previous budget, the government has talked about tops, which means they're going to lay particular emphasis on tomato, onion, potatoes, so that these things which are very basic to Indian, cuisines, they are protected. I really don't know how much progress has happened in those kind of issues. But inflation, otherwise, you also see many other things have gone up, pulses, edible oil, and this is a real cause of concern. And middle class is certainly suffering. But then as far as government is concerned, the RBI is concerned, which actually tries to keep inflation under control, it's more or less on target. So if you look at numbers, you would find that, the inflation otherwise overall is under control. But if you look at CPI, and especially this, where in that index, these things are heavily weighted, the inflation is far higher. So the government is saying that we'll be able to control that and these are seasonal adjustments. That's what the survey is saying.
Okay. So my next question is about, many middle-class families, they dream about buying a house, but, rising interest rates and housing prices actually make it tough. So can we see any changes in this area?
Yeah, again, you see, interest rates, if they have to be brought down, the government has actually brought down repo rate about, I think in December, MPC, when it met in December, they brought down. After that, there's been no change. And again, there is an MPC meeting which is happening on February 7th, and we expected that they will deal with repo rates now. But the point here is that there was a lot of talk, and there was a difference of opinion between Finance Ministry and the RBI, and the two were differing because RBI was more cautious, whereas Finance Ministry wanted certain easing because they wanted certain growth to happen simultaneously. But after now, what has happened in the last few weeks, where Indian rupee has actually depreciated further, there's a question mark whether this will actually happen. There is always, if the two sides of the financial management, one is the Finance Ministry, the other is RBI, if they work closely in consonance, then this may work out. And the budget is coming on February 1, MPC is happening on February 7th, and MPC will be very closely watching whether the finance minister fulfills her task, which is basically whether they're able to control fiscal deficit. If that's a responsibility of the government, if that is done, maybe then that will have an impact on the way MPC is decided on 7th. Let me answer your question. When that happens, if the rates actually come down, then government will be able to pass on, the banks will be then able to pass on to the consumer. If that happens, maybe the rates would come down. But we'll have to wait and see whether that situation will come. We'll have to wait and see for that.
Okay, my next question, I think many of our viewers will be interested in this. So companies are making record profits, but it's not really reflecting in the salaries. Salaries have not really kept up with the with inflation, and job growth is also flat. So how do we read these numbers?
Well, it's a very important point, and Anand Nageshwaran, the chief economic advisor, has actually very frankly dealt with it in a chapter. In a box, he actually discusses this issue. FY24, what has happened is the big companies, and he mentions this, have got a record profit of 22 to 24%. And this is a 15-year record. I mean, what has happened, this kind of amazing profits they have made. And these are all big companies. And on the other hand, if you have to look at real wages, wage, it's only grown by 1.5%. So there is a disparity that while the wages are not growing, the profits are growing. Why this is happening is a different question. It's happening probably because the government gave relief in the form of cut in corporate tax, and the expectation was that the corporates would go and invest, and they haven't invested. They rather kept it in their lockers perhaps, and they have added to their bottom line, and therefore the profits are up. The government expected that they would invest, and therefore the economy would further get a boost. And that's a big setback. So it's a question why private sector is not getting enough confidence, why it is not investing. That's a question. And again, there is another thing connected to that. Private sector would only invest when they see a certain growth. And the growth would happen if consumption go up. And right now the consumption also down. So that's another reason the private sector may not be investing.
Okay. My last question is, the economic survey actually talks about energy transition and electric mobility. So will rise in green energy bring down fuel prices, or is it a new normal?
Again, the survey also mentions about COP29 and then says that we have to keep our, per capita, consumption is very low of energy, and therefore, the pollution which we cause, per capita pollution which we cause is very low, which is true. So the emphasis which we have been saying more on, renewable energies and less on fossil fuels. I think currently we about 46% we get from renewable and remaining from fossil fuel. The idea is to cut down the fossil fuel and go for this. But can we do it? Can we increase it? By 2030, their target is, which is a new target they have added, by 2030, which should become, in another 5 years actually, that we should become the third biggest economy, and even the president has today referred to that. For that, they are saying during that period, we want to add another 4%. From 46, we want to take it to 50%. Now, can we do it? So I must say that Anand Nageshwaran has very frankly admitted in the opening remarks itself. I think in the first chapter itself, he says that look, there are many solar panel components which we cannot make, which either can be in a cost-effective manner or which can have a certain quality. And these have to be imported from China. And he openly says that. So I think if we are able to import these things, probably we can add to non-renewable. So that's one. There are other components in that, which is basically nuclear energy or wind power. And hydel is about, I think, 10%. Currently, I think wind power is another 10%, and I think solar is. These data is there, but overall it's about 46%. So this can happen only there is more investment, and also we get some technology to get these.